I was standing right here listening to it before, and it wasn't picking up any feedback. And what the mics actually sound like. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything. There's not going to be a pick up the mics. I was concerned about the crowd. But I've done it.
No, I hate to do it this way because this makes me feel like you're in a regular auditorium setup and
Something a little more professional.
definitely something we're kind of
Yeah, but I mean, I know in this day and age, you want to go voice over on feed. We did it for orientation about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
It's simply fantastic. It's so expensive.
Yeah, you go fiber everywhere.
Not fiber.
Okay, you do copper. A lot of the setups I've seen have gone all wrong.
Yeah, and it's something we just, it's just Ethernet cables.
And what do you use then for like audio and everything that has mics? Or do you try to mix your view?
You mean just like as far as like console?
Well, I mean, so you have this audio, right?
Yeah.
How does
So the audio travels to little IP devices. I can't think exactly what they're called, but they're just little on the server. There's little boxes for IP that transfer the audio like all around the building. And they'll let go, and then we've got consoles that are 3 consoles.
So, AV is one of those things that's so hard to find information on, unless you're deep in the
Yeah, and I guess the Cisco switch. Very slow.
I said, I don't have
this stuff. I can do
I gave you one of those. Take me out.
That reminds me that I was supposed to be, whenever I got here, I was going to open up a remote connection to my computer at the station because I said it's automation. To make sure my computer back at the station was doing what it was supposed to be doing.
I was just seeing if there was too many people standing out here. I mean, we do have 106 that got running right now, but I don't think we really need it.
We could use some
How do you share? I never expected that. I was like, do we even need a group of rooms? No, I don't think
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 6 o'clock. I'd like to welcome you here to our public hearing on city finances. I'd like to thank Washington State College of Ohio for the use of their beautiful facility. All 12 of Marietta's elected officials were invited to this meeting. Present on the panel, we have 6 of our 7 voting councilors and the mayor. Councilor Scales is unable to attend due to a previously scheduled medical procedure. And Law Director Bertram is present, but he will not be participating on the panel because his duties are primarily limited to drafting any future legislation that may be requested. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name is Susan Vessels, and thank you for joining us here today. This meeting will be held in 2 phases. First, we will have a statement phase from all of our elected officials, followed by a written question period. I will start this meeting with a statement on the contents of the performance audit. Next, there will be statements from any voting councilors that wish to speak. The treasurer and auditor are not present, and no written statement was received. And finally, Mayor Schlicker will present his written statement. After the statement phase, previously submitted questions for our advertisements on WTAP, WNOA, social media, our website will be presented to the panel for answers. There are a couple clipboards with pins. I believe they started in the back and they're working their way around so that individuals may submit any questions to our council. They did in the front. Time permitting, we will be able to answer any additional questions that aren't duplicative and that are appropriate before if time permits. Due to venue constraints, this meeting is scheduled to end at 7:15. If we do not get to your question, you're welcome to stay later and we will do our best to address it in person. So that we may run a productive meeting, we ask that you respect the format of the meeting, which is set to convey as much information as possible in a short amount of time. In the event that there is a violation of decorum, there will be a warning, and should the violation continue, we would have to ask you to leave. Our last public meeting on this subject was held at the Armory this past Monday. Public comment was permitted on the subject, and consequently, the meeting lasted over 3 hours. We do not have that luxury tonight. I'll start by saying our auditor of state conducts 2 types of audits. There are financial audits and performance audits. Financial audits are done automatically, and performance audits are done upon request. As we went through the annual budget process in 2022, it became apparent that the general fund had systemic problems, namely too much money was being spent and not enough was coming in. Thus, in early 2023, the council requested a performance audit to gain insights and learn about possible ways to improve our city operations. Producing the state's audit report took just under a year, and it became public this past February. There is a summary, there's still documents left at the back of the auditorium, and the full report is accessible on our city website at mariettaohio.net. So if you have your phones, you can access that here on your phones. It's under the pull-down menu, online resources. The audit has a total of 3 key observations and 7 recommendations. There's not enough time to go through all of those here this evening, one by one. Instead, I will highlight 4 separate points. The first point reveals that Marietta has, the report rather, reveals that Marietta has a spending problem and not a revenue problem. If you go to the report at key observation 1, page 2, you should be able to have that up here. Okay, let me see if I can forward here. Key observation 1 at page 2. It states that Marietta receives more revenue across all funds compared to the local and statewide peers, but also has higher corresponding spending. Let me explain first, what is a peer city? If you go to page 51 of the audit, well, it won't work up there, so let me see. Go to page 51 of the audit. The audit methodology is explained. The auditor gathered data, conducted interviews, and reviewed and assessed all available information in 5 sets of peers. That, in these sets of peers, are peers that the auditor of state determined most closely mirrored Marietta in specific areas. Local, state, wastewater utility, and wastewater. We go to page 7. Aaron, we'll get the slides working here. On page 7 of the audit, for local peers, the auditor of state selected Dover, New Philadelphia, Cambridge, Ironton, and Portsmouth. As to local peer revenue per resident, we're on page 7. Okay, thank you. Per resident, Marietta brings in through taxes and fees $1,789 per resident. Our local peers bring in just $1,254 per resident. So we bring in $535 more per resident than our peer average. In other words, our local peer cities have revenue that is 30% less than our revenue. For our statewide peers, the discrepancy is even greater. Our statewide peers are Sharonville, Bellefontaine, Greenville, Inglewood, and West Carrollton. Our statewide peer revenue is just $1,028 per resident. That is $761 less per resident than Marietta brings in. In other words, our statewide peer cities have a revenue that is 42% less than our own revenue. On the expense side, we spend 22.7% more per resident than our statewide peers and 28.4% more per resident than the local peers. The source for this data is from the Auditor of State's 2021 financial audits. So our overspending compared to both our local and statewide sister cities is creating deficits that are unsustainable. We could go to the 2024 general fund budget review. Have that. 2024 general fund budget review. Okay, during the budget process, it happens in late fall, the council adopted a budget with a deficit spending level of $811,000. We were asking for ways to save, but we weren't receiving it. So that budget was adopted on January 1st. We had an amended budget that took into account the increase. There's been a past history of others described as balloon speaking, where bills were held in January to make the end of year carryover look better than it actually was. So we wouldn't pay bills in December until January. End of year carryover is something that municipalities utilize to determine essentially their economic health. Then we have, so that once those carryovers and budget amendments were made our deficit spending moving forward for this year a negative $1.2 million. Then we, once the increase in spending due to the collective bargaining agreements that went into effect at the end of last year and through this spring, that brought, when those are factored in, the increased expenses, that brings the spending to a negative $1.5 million. We had a $1.7 million carryover with a deficit spending of 1.5. By January, we are looking at having approximately 215. There might have been some adjustments. We went to $240,000 cash. That means if we do not make changes, the city will be in fiscal emergency and will not be able to make payroll. Okay. Next document, I would like to show the 2024 General Fund Reserves History and Outlook. This is on page 61 of the audit. Thank you. There. Okay. This one, if you go, it shows the revenue, the anticipated revenues, and it shows a negative fund balance by the end of 2025 of negative $400,000. So without systemic changes, that negative fund balance snowballs to $13.9 million in 2032. So that's the end of the first point as to the performance audit. The second point that I'd like to make is that the bulk of our spending problem, according to the performance audit, stems from overstaffing compared to our peers. About 81% of the general fund goes to employee salaries and benefits. We are advised a healthy city should have no more than 70% in this category. The second point goes to recommendation 4, staffing levels, which is found at page 27 of the audit. The performance audit notes that in several departments, our staffing levels align with our peer cities. It states that, however, the city should consider adjusting staffing levels as described as full-time equivalents. So if you have 2 part-time employees and they work together 40 hours, that is a full-time equivalent, those 2 part-time individuals. So as described as full-time equivalents, they note that the Public Works Department, the Utility Billing Department, and the Police and Fire Departments could have staffing level adjustments. The report states that staffing reductions if staffing reductions are made, that could result in a closer alignment with peers and save between $800,000 and $2.4 million, depending on how many of the recommendations the council and the mayor would accept. Page 29 of the performance audit refers to the Public Works Department and states overall the Public Works, compared to our peers, is overstaffed in facilities maintenance by 2 full-time equivalents. Utility billing at page 31, the state audit notes that there are 3 full-time equivalents above recommended levels. Page 33, not including dispatch, according to the auditor, Marietta has a benchmark staffing need of 28 full-time equivalents, or 7 fewer than the current 35. As to fire, the audit reports that we have a benchmark staffing level of 1.5, and thus the state suggests that we are overstaffed by 4. Recommendation number 6, as to the collective bargaining agreements, it states that many of our staffing levels exceed Ohio revised code requirements. The third summary point from the audit is that the audit states that the city has been generous to employees as compared to our peer cities. Marietta's salaries and benefits, this is a quote from the audit report. Marietta salaries and benefits are more generous than our peers, and the report recommends that in the future the city consider renegotiating salary schedules for lawn. From page 37 of the audit, it states that we are paying over a career $131,000 excess for patrolmen than our peer cities are. We are paying $83,000 more over a career to a dispatcher, paying $126,000 more over a career to a firefighter, and $144,000 more over a career to a laborer one. Charts on hourly rates are page 74, appendix F, under compensation. Fourth point that I want to make, and we've got a lot to cover tonight, but is the audit, almost 20% of the audit report, this one and the one that we had 18 years ago, states that there are 2 health departments within 1.75 miles, and that is the state auditor finds that that's not an efficient use of public funds. The peer average distance between health departments is 13.5 miles. This is an issue for further study on page 23, key observation 2. While, and this is a quote from the report, while the suite of service offerings varies between Marietta Belfry Health Department we differs between Marietta Belfry Health Department and Washington County. There are a number of redundant offerings. Consolidation with the county is one potential option that can lead to reduced costs while maintaining service levels. Marietta should evaluate opportunities to more efficiently provide health services to its residents. Washington County Health Department does provide services to about 40,000 on a budget of 1.5 million. That's 37.5 capita. Marietta Belfry Health Department has a budget of approximately 1.2 and serves 19,000 per 19,000 residents. That's $60 per capita. So that's based upon those numbers, and some of that money is grant money. Of course, the cost is to the Marietta Belfry Health Department is 60% more than the cost in the county health department. Would like to note that there are only 27 city health departments in Ohio. These are mostly in bigger cities. The report lists that Coshocton City Health Department This health department recently merged with the county. The Coshocton merger has been cited as saving $250,000 a year, a reduction in confusion due to formerly proximity, and an improvement in services. A few final points of my statement. The council has allegiance to the long-term health of the city of Marietta. Our job is fundamentally to make sure that the city stays solvent while providing needed services. In the last several years, we have made incremental changes that have patched the ship. Namely, we've reorganized the city into public works. That's bringing tremendous efficiencies. You probably noticed our parking good, and the city is making good changes in those areas. We also have selected projects with matching funds to take pressure off of our general fund, so we can improve areas of the city without spending money straight out of the general fund without permission. We've also set aside tax dollars specifically for fire and streets usage. We currently have a few weeks of expenses, but now we currently have a few weeks of expenses in reserve. In order to align with the GFOA, Government Finance and Accounting Office best practices, we need a minimum of 2 months of operating cost reserve, and that equals $2.5 million. This time I would ask any member of council, perhaps, would you like to start, Councilor Altman, with your statement?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Alton. I'm the second ward city councilor, and I'm pleased to be with you this evening. And I have a few comments I'd like to share with you. When I was entertaining the idea of pursuing a seat on city council, I envisioned doing work with citizens and local organizations and other city councilors and city staff on projects of all kinds that would improve the city in many ways. And while there has been a lot of this, the improvements most needed were not what I was anticipating. My worry that I share with you tonight is that if we can't find the will to address the challenges that we're facing, we may not have the opportunities to do that good and interesting work in the future. Please let me explain. I've been assigned to the Finance Committee since January of 2022, and as part of this assignment, I'm regularly reviewing reports and fund transfers and other financial transaction documentation. Perhaps watching most closely the cash balance reports that project our estimated end-of-year cash balance. A sufficient balance is needed early in the calendar year as tax receipts are paid a month in arrears, so anticipating this balance is critical. Typically, this balance needs to be in the neighborhood of $1.5 million. I observed early in my tenure that this balance was varying considerably throughout the year, and while some of this is to be expected, with other counselors over time, concerns began to rise. During November of 2022, at the request of other members, I made contact with the State Auditor's Office to inquire about the possibility of performance audit of the general fund to gather an outside perspective on what might be going on. A proposal for the project was received in January 2023, with council moving to enter the contract for this effort on February 2nd, 2023. Work commenced on this project shortly thereafter and was concluded with the release of the final document on February 6th, 2024. Critical to this series of events were a number of virtual update meetings hosted by the state auditor and attended by members of council and the administration during the course of the audit. Most notably, a meeting held on October 5th, 2023, where preliminary findings were presented to all in attendance. While the contents of the meeting were still confidential at that moment due to state regulations, the impact of the information that was being shared with us was unmistakable. The opportunity to begin working on solutions was presented in this moment. My recall at this time was that council members immediately began considering ways to avoid the conditions forecasted by this information. We initiated requests to the administration for guidance, suggestions, and leadership on this topic, only to receive none. This was exacerbated when we were provided with the most complete and detailed budget proposal I have ever received, and great kudos to Mitch for that, which was communicated to us as a bare bones budget that contained an $819,000 projected deficit in the general fund for 2024. While I did reluctantly vote for this budget, my expectation was, and still remains, that significant revisions would be made throughout the year to bring the budget into balance. Since the adoption of the budget, few to no suggestions have been provided by the administration, and it's my opinion at this moment, until maybe a couple of weeks ago, that none were forthcoming. I'm personally unwilling to roll the dice, hoping that our own internal information is wrong, or that somehow this just won't happen. If we don't take any action, the general fund could face the possibility of being 85% short of necessary funding as early as January 2025, based on our current estimates. Recognizing this, during February-March of 2024, Council declared that all options were on the table for consideration in addressing this matter, including the reduction of staff through the modification of the organization chart or across-the-board reductions in line items. This systematic challenge that we face has, unfortunately, and perhaps dangerously, been cast as some sort of personal or cultural vendetta against individuals or specific city departments. This rhetoric does nothing to help us solve the issue, and only serves to pit us against each other in ways that benefit no one. My personal goal is to act with conviction, guided by the best data and information that we can muster. And at the same time, I too struggle to not act and react solely based on emotion. I cannot emphasize this to you enough. This is absolutely not what I want to be doing on City Council. But if this is the challenge that we face, I will not shy away from it until we find a resolution. I want to share a hypothetical scenario with you that might help illustrate this predicament that we find ourselves in. Median household income in Marietta in 2022 was reported as $44,401. With a current city income tax of 1.85%, this typical household would pay approximately $821.42 in city income tax. At this rate, we would need to immediately add at least 1,217 additional households to Marietta to generate an additional $1 million in tax revenue. Now, those of you that might know me know that I'm a pretty optimistic person, but the likelihood of anything resembling this taking place quickly is far beyond even my rosiest of colored glasses. The process of elimination leaves us then with the grueling task of managing our expenses to fit within the limitations of our resources, nothing more or less. My observation tells me that this problem has likely been compounding for years, and maybe perhaps decades. It also tells me that this probably could have been addressed by previous councils and previous administrations, but it wasn't. And clearly this is the most sensitive and difficult task we could encounter together. So I'm going to remain optimistic that we can be people that rise to the occasion for this moment and not leave it for future generations to struggle with.
Good evening. I am 4th Ward Councilwoman Erin O'Neill, and I want to start by acknowledging the concerns and the anxieties that many of you may be feeling regarding our city's financial future. And I want to echo some of the statements that my fellow councilors have made tonight. This is undoubtedly a challenging time for everyone, and it's important that we come together in public forums like this to address these issues head-on. Our city's financial health is crucial to maintaining the services and programs that benefit every single Marietta resident. And right now, we are facing some serious issues. My responsibility is specifically to those in the 4th Ward. When I threw my hat into the ring, it was because I wanted to make positive changes in my ward and in my city. I was actually urged by my family to reconsider, given the public scrutiny that government officials often face. But I moved ahead anyway with my application and an interview process because I had a vision for our city. Unfortunately, I did not realize the extent of the financial crisis when I had jumped in with the idea of helping to reopen the Harbor Bridge and bring new businesses to the west side. I wanted to support the community gardens. I wanted to be a part of the conversation of what to do with the old Harmer School and all of these other things that would directly impact 4th Ward residents. Unfortunately, we are in a situation that is going to negatively impact the community on a greater scale if we don't take action now. It can be argued how we got here. It can be argued who is to blame. As someone who has only been on council for 3 months and 11 days today, I am doing the best I can to learn about why we find ourselves where we find ourselves. But the fact is that the money is not there and the hard decisions are going to have to be made. However, we also understand that any discussion regarding position cuts is sensitive and can have a significant impact on individuals and families. That fact is not lost on me or any of my fellow councilors. That is why we are here today, to hear your concerns, your ideas, and your suggestions for alternative approaches that we may not have considered. Let me be clear. Council's goal is not just to balance the budget, but to do so in a way that minimizes the impact on all of our residents and ensures that essential services continue to be provided. No legislation has been brought forward. No votes have been taken. There are 7 voting members of this council, and the majority rules. We are not the heartless, nameless city council. We are your neighbors who have taken on this role because we love this city and its people. We have families, we have jobs, we pay taxes, and we love this city just like everyone else. The only difference is we have signed up to be the representative voice of the people, and sometimes that means we get to take our lumps too. This job is not for the faint of heart, but we do it because we care about Marietta. I urge all of you in attendance tonight to actively listen to the questions and answers being presented in tonight's public forum. Our clerk, Michelle, did an amazing job of gathering all of your submitted questions, and she has my personal thanks for all the work that she's done and continues to do. Please don't rely on social media to keep you informed about what's going on. Contact the administration and your council person through the established methods if you still have questions following this evening's meeting. The citizens of Marietta matter. Your voices and your perspectives will help guide us in making the best decisions for our entire community. It's my hope that we can work together collaboratively with empathy and understanding to find solutions that uphold our city's values and prioritize the well-being of all of our residents. And again, I want to thank you all for being here tonight and for taking an active role in your government. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Harley Nolan, a city councilman, or meaning I can represent the whole city of Marietta. I've owned and operated a number of businesses here in Marietta for almost 50 years. There have been times where they've been very successful, and then times when there was recession in the area. During those times, I've had the terrible experience of having to release some of my staff who became good friends in the hopes that that business would then grow again and I could rehire them, bring them back to full employment. I see that Marietta is at that point where we have to make the awful and painful reductions in some of the staff in order to survive. Not going into a period where the state comes over and takes over all of our city functions, makes all the decisions away from them. So it's plain and simple. I see that our checkbook is just about empty. We must do something that's going to be very painful. And I hope you're willing to work with us and find the least painful way to get through this tight period. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hello, I'm Cassidy Show, and I am also an at-large council person. It is not lost on me that these decisions affect lives and families. If we choose not to act, the only thing that changes is that the effect becomes more severe and impacts more families. A week ago, I stood beside many of our police officers and filled sandbags to help residents and businesses with the impending flood. Though there were plenty of things that we disagreed on, we were able to work together to find solutions to get the sand in the bags and to get the sandbags in front of those floodwaters. I believe that the opportunity to find solutions that have the least impact on citizens also exists in this situation. We need to recognize the situation in front of us and realize that in order to protect our city, we must attack the problem, not each other. Throughout my time on council, I do wish that I had been able to get people's attention sooner on the financial concerns that I've had. I have had people in this room tell me that I'm known as the person that votes no. And while they were clear to me that that was not a compliment, I appreciated that people recognized that I did not agree with many of the decisions that were being made. With a budget of a deficit of $1.5 million for 2024, there are some costs that we do not have the ability to change, like liability and property insurance, property taxes, law library fees. Assuming that we don't make any changes to personnel costs, but we cut everything to zero that we do have the ability to reduce, like materials, utilities, gas, office supplies, training, etc., then the most that we could cut is slightly more than $2 million. So that would still not put us in a great place, and we would have almost 200 employees who would not have the ability to do their job because there would be no funding to be able to perform their tasks. Even with as pleasant as this situation has been so far, I'm grateful that you all are here. I'm grateful that more people are starting to see our financial situation and show up to voice their opinions and offer suggestions. One-off savings are not going to correct our budget deficit into the future. The majority of these changes must lead to yearly repeatable cost savings. Those one-off cost savings may give us breathing room to be able to allow for some opportunities to make some more gentle, permanent changes to the budget. But from past experience, my fear is that as a whole, we will continue to look the other way and not address the unbalance of our budget. One person may not be the cause of this problem, but many have contributed to this. And many have chosen to look the way opposed to choosing to have these difficult conversations that we're having tonight. So again, I thank you that you're willing to be part of the conversation and willing to look at the solutions that we can have to solve the problem before us.
I'll be brief. You guys have questions, and we want to get to those. My name is Ben Rutherford, City Council at Large. We have a two-part problem here. First part is financial. The second part is as important, but that's about the vision of Marietta and a strategic plan that ensures that we don't find ourselves in the same circumstance we find ourselves in today. In the financial world, the question is there actually a problem? And I think these meetings are critically important because they get that information out to absolutely everyone so that we all can understand what does the data say, and then we can either discern, yes, we do have an issue, that's the problem. Then the question becomes is, what is the solution to that problem? We'll get there, but we only get there together. That's the first part. The second part is as critical as the one we're doing now. That is strategic planning. How do we ensure that we put our priorities right in writing? What is our mission? What is our vision? What is our comprehensive strategic plan? What are the things that we want to accomplish over a certain period of time? That keeps us out of this circumstance going forward. My hope is that we continue to have great engagement. Great to see everybody here tonight. And I know you all have solutions. You came up with solutions on Monday, and we're getting those solutions as well. So that's a good thing. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Josh Schlicker. I'm currently the mayor of the city of Marietta. I take great pride here tonight to represent the city and all the workers. Thank you for the time tonight as part of this. I also would like to thank Washington State for the accommodations here tonight. My office is responsible for a balanced budget, and my office is also responsible for safety and service operations. And tonight we have many of our department heads here. We have many of our employees representing everything: police, fire, public service, water, wastewater, IT, health, code enforcement, everything, engineering. Everybody that I see in the audience represents the city of Marietta in some way. So currently the city's general fund is anticipated to receive around 8.7 or 62.7 million or 62% from the city income tax. So everyone that works in the city, lives in the city, pays into the income tax. And those dollars go to what I just said: police, fire, health, recreation, engineering, code enforcement, city facilities, and then also our law director, court, auditor, treasurer, mayor's office, and city council. Currently, our goal has always been $1.2 to $1.5 million carry. And we are all concerned with the completing carry forward balance. General fund revenues in 2023 reached $12,721,922.08. 80% of that, roughly, goes to salaries and benefits. This amount allows the city of Marietta, which I'm proud of, to employ a diverse workforce. We train them. We pay employees above tier cities. We provide high-quality health benefits for them and their families. We give high levels of vacation, sick time, and other benefits such as longevity considered a luxury in the career cities. And our city offers uniform clothing allowances as well as other benefits. And recently, the city offered tuition reimbursement. While the audit can be a useful tool in neutrally evaluating staffing, finances, and performance, it must be completely accurate in providing this information. And if a government entity, such as the City of Marietta, is supposed to apply any of the recommendations, then the entire document must be authentic and completely accurate. There have been several issues of accuracy raised and heard by council members and my administration. Since there have been those issues raised, I feel further investigation is warranted and no hasty action should be taken. The audit contains 7 recommendations. 1, multi-year forecasting. And that is the first recommendation. My office is currently working towards that goal. Number 2, comprehensive planning, which the City Council, as well as the steering committee that I appointed, is currently working on that plan. Number 3, contract management, contract advantages are being reviewed to best determine future contracts. 4, staff reductions to align with peer cities is complicated and will be decided by weighing costs and service levels. 5, city paying higher salaries than peer cities also will be difficult to determine in the future. 6, collective bargaining negotiating. And 7, fleet management and maintenance tracking is currently being done on about 1/3 of our vehicles. In my tenure as mayor, I have proposed new programs that utilize labor in more efficient ways, combine service departments to consolidate and share expensive equipment, revamp the way the city handles fleet and equipment purchases. We eliminated costly maintenance to those older vehicles and equipment. We've always supported our police officers by replacing all patrol cars in a couple of years, improving body cameras for their protection, provided marks radios and additional training. Our fire department is just as equally as important to me, and I will always support them with new equipment such as our medic units, our hazmat trailer that we've received this year, or last year, new fire engines, new training center, and our new tower truck currently being built. I supported raises for our police officers, firefighters, and service personnel, the benefits they receive working with the city of Marietta. I thank you all for your service, everyone. With that being said, my administration and department heads have been working diligently looking at ways to save costs. We've had meetings and have been compiling the information. At this point, we are starting to implement some of those ideas brought forward for savings. Just through my office itself, we have reevaluated contracts and have made the decision not to renew our loan contract for the 2024 season. Potential savings of nearly $100,000. We have parted ways with 3 hardworking budgeted seasonal part-time workers in our cemeteries, a savings of nearly $58,000. We have explored other options on the operation of our aquatic centers, such as leasing into an operator, while we have had discussions with our pool management company about trimming costs in the way of concessions and personnel. These would be no way to cover a projected loss for the yearly operation. It also costs approximately $25,000 per year in electricity to operate the aquatic center. The aquatic center is in the best shape it has ever been since it was built. And I realize how large of an investment it is to the city of Marietta and the citizens of Marietta. It is one that has lost money the past 2 years and is projected to lose money this year. Taking all these factors into consideration, we are making the hard decision to not open the aquatic center for the year 2024. Projected savings of approximately $300,000, not knowing what the actual revenue would be to offset the cost. While making these decisions are hard, they seem like the right thing to do. I'm asking you, the employees, the public, and city council to support me in these decisions and continue working with everyone to work toward future cost-saving measures. Housing is a problem in Marietta. but I have to say that we've been working very hard with major investors that had an interest in Marietta. I can announce that developers have given the go-ahead on approximately $40 million in new development in the city of Marietta in the future. That will help with the tax base. Our safety and service department heads have stepped up in a big way to provide us cost-saving measures in their own departments and ways to possibly save costs elsewhere throughout the city. We will continue to hold meetings with our department heads as we intend to implement some of their cost-saving measures. At this time, I am making the recommendation that we do not eliminate any positions or lay off any personnel. I believe enough cost-saving measures have been brought forth, and future recommendations will get us to a point where it is warranted to move forward with only a few future position eliminations through attrition, vacant positions, or merged services. Changes will have to be made. Department operations will have to change. Positions may be changed or altered. Programs will need to change, and some city services will be altered. Police Chief Warden and Fire Chief Durham have stepped up to that challenge, and I look forward to working with them as we transition into new ways of delivering services to the public without sacrificing our dedicated and trained personnel or levels of service you all expect. I hope you, the employees, public, and City Council will support me in these recommendations as well. I thank you for coming tonight and being part of this, and we will look forward to all your questions. I will stay as long as I can to answer anything that I can answer on behalf of the administration. Thank you all.
Question portion. We had dozens, maybe more than 50 or 60 questions submitted through the council clerk, and they have been consolidated. Many of the questions were duplicated, so we've consolidated them. We'll start with the first question. If council members in the past were asking for an audit, why wasn't one done? And a similar question in that same category, is council familiar with the maximum cost allocation report for 2007? While this is the city's second performance audit, we're the first council in the history of Marietta to actually request one. The first one was requested by the citizens of Marietta by placing a referendum for a performance audit on the 2006 ballot, which was subsequently approved by voters. Recommendations out of that audit included instituting a cost allocation from the enterprise fund, adjustments to health insurance, and adjustments to departments with overstaffing compared to sister cities. The cost allocation for the enterprise funds was done. This bought a lot of time and permitted continued overspending. The efficiencies were gained with health insurance by switching to Teamsters, and there was, our current audit actually says there remains exceptional value there. As to the now 17-year-old recommendation to adjust staffing levels, at that time our population was 10% greater than it is now, and there were no adjustments. Does any member of council wish to respond any further to that set of questions? If not, we'll move on to why is it nobody is held accountable within local government for their actions? And there's a part two to the question, will individuals be held accountable for more or less giving incorrect, misguided information? So accountability for elected officials comes from the voters, as elected officials works directly for the citizens of the city. The law director's employees report to the law director, treasurer employees report to the elected treasurer, council clerk answers to the council as a whole, the auditor's employees answer to the auditor. All other departments are ultimately employees of the mayor as the chief executive and serve at his discretion. Accountability of our employees is best accomplished through conducting performance reviews, and so up to elected officials to enforce accountability. This is a member of the council. Yes, Ms. Jones. I will just add that we have, for I
number of years now requested that performance reviews be conducted within the city, and as of yet, that has not been implemented citywide. Our council clerk does go through annual reviews, but right now, all there are no performance-based raises or bonuses. All of that is based on time served. And it is something that I think all of council would love to see implemented. It's hard to be able to improve things that you aren't measuring. If you don't know how things are performing, you have no idea what you can change to make it better. So one thing we'd like to see.
Next question set is how long has the city been aware of this, referring to the financial issues, that this was going to happen, and why weren't actions taken sooner? Why was this reckless spending allowed to continue? Part 3, is this stemming from bad money management from the prior administration or the current one? And the changes after the 2007 audit were essentially band-aids. Beginning in 2018 and 19, general fund stressors were being noticed. Then COVID came, and the city received $1.7 million in CARES Act funds to supplement the general fund for salaries. This again bought time until recently. The mere suggestion of a few weeks ago implementing some changes, though currently as the city legislation has been drafted and decisions have been made, but the mere suggestion of this that we implement some changes recommended by the state auditor resulted in the intimidation of more than one of our counselors through social media and private cell phone calls. So this is bringing change needed to avoid deficit spending is very difficult and unpopular. That's why it hasn't been done up to this point. However, the current council is taking a proactive approach to finding solutions for the betterment of all Marietta citizens, despite any intimidation. Does any councilor wish to respond to that question?
Just briefly, I'd like to reiterate a couple points on the finance side, mainly looking at it as a trend pattern. So folks are aware, in 22, we had about a $2.3 million carryover. In 2023, that went down to $1.7 million. So that was a reduction in over $600,000. Even though that $600,000 drop is significant, that actually isn't the actual number, because we received funding for the retention of fire and police from the state to the tune of about $238,000. So that reduction without some of the state funding would have been beyond $600,000 and closer to about $900,000 drop. So we're going from 2.3 down to 1.7 to this year, we're looking at 245,000 or 215,000, depending upon what those numbers will fluctuate with, moving into 25, which is over $500,000, and then 26, 1.4 million. So the reality is that we have a trend line. The question is how do we overcome that trend line internally while at the same time making sure we remain solvent? I think there are some solutions, but those are short term. We need to focus on longer term solutions as well.
Okay, moving on to question group number 4. This was questions about the qualifications of members of council with financial budgeting background as each member of council have. The Marietta Council is composed of 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. We have amongst us business owners, an engineer, a retired Ohio Department of Transportation manager, an insurance executive, a lawyer and a veteran, a small business entrepreneur, a college administrator and writer, and an architectural designer. We are citizens that love the city and are willing to devote our time and talents to the betterment of the city, despite many of us having other full-time jobs, families, and obligations. As the appointment to the chairman positions, the council president, I appoint the person best suited to the position out of the options, namely those elected. Any member of council wishes to address that question first? Question group number 5. Several council, they've received several council salary and benefit questions. Why do members of the city council get full benefits and a retirement plan? And can the council give up anything? And another, part three is there's $135,000 set aside for health insurance, as well as $3,400 for cellular service. Let me start with the answers in here. Counselors make $8,686 annually. This is the OPER's minimum earnable salary. Counselors are offered health insurance just like the other elected officials. Several of our counselors have declined health insurance. As the elected officials, counselors do not receive vacation or sick leave. Counselors work as much as the job requires. Sometimes that is more than 40 hours a week. You have to work 32 years to get OPER's retirement. Most counselors don't last in the job for more than 4 to 6 years. The council has line items in the budget for legal fees. If we don't need to hire a lawyer to avoid greater losses, this could possibly be returned to the general fund. Our contract services line is to pay for services such as Walter Drain, who updates and publishes Marietta codified ordinances. Other items go to advertising and the like for items that need to be done to make the council operate. Does anyone else have anything else? Yes.
And I just would like to add, I'm one of those council members who does not take the benefits. I'm well taken care of by my employer, and I didn't feel the need to burden taxpayers with that. I'm, again, one of 8. I would like to add, though, that to ask public officials to volunteer their time, it's just not feasible. You're not going to get the quality of candidates to step up to do the job if there is no incentive to do the job. And I would like to provide a Stanford law study that talks about the different reasons that undercompensating a public official for their time and effort can lead to different issues. But you're welcome to email me, Aaron O'Neill at MariettaOH.net, and I can provide you that information.
So I had brought up the idea last year of either removing insurance for council people or adjusting the salary considerably, and something that had been brought to my attention that I hadn't considered was, especially in our community where the median income is $44,000, that many people live paycheck to paycheck and have to use their time to make money in order to provide for their families. And so if we were to change it to where these positions weren't compensated, there would be a large percentage of our population that would not be able to use their time because they're needing to devote their time to provide for their families. And there would only be those that are wealthy or well-to-do in other areas who would have the time to commit to this. And that's not something that I am comfortable creating that environment for the city. I am interested in bringing forward legislation that would change the income the insurance contribution for elected officials. We do raises for elected officials in advance of a term. You have to have that legislation done before people are running for elections so that you're not setting a salary knowing who is going to be in the office. So for the 4-year term, the 2-year term for council, we had to do that early last year. So there were raises put in place because at that time we did not recognize the financial condition that we now know to be true. And so while our non-union people did not receive raises this year, the elected officials, it's set differently for each position, all did. And so my hope is to be able to increase that insurance contribution to offset where non-official or non-union people did not receive raises and allow elected officials to contribute to the cost savings as well.
Moving on to
Wait a
question.
second, you didn't answer the question. The question was, where did
Sir,
council
sir.
go up?
We have very limited time, so
So you're not not gonna answer the question. It was asked.
I mean, it's not for. I guess I will further, I mean, I was answering what we are willing to give up is that I hope that they will support the legislation to increase the premiums paid by elected officials to offset the cost that the raises had for all elected officials. So that number would still have to be determined, but it's something that I hope that we have support to be able to see passed.
Do we go to each council member president to find out what you are willing to give up personally?
Sir, the question is, the council's already making a state minimum. And so the question is, I mean, half the council, I believe, does not take health insurance. And so that leaves, you know, in our budget, line items for legal services and advertising so that we can actually deal with zoning and those sort of issues. There's not a lot to give up. And I'll go on to the next one, the next question. What is the law director's plan to help this city? There's several questions about the law director's office. The law director's office handled 2,600 cases in 2023, as well as all of the council's legislation. That's 285 documents, in addition to all the statutory duties. This table of organization allots 3 assistant law directors and 3 support staff. The support staff are essential, and since July 22, the law director has been unable to hire a replacement assistant law director. In March of 24, a second assistant law director left that position. Our law director's office is now operating with just the law director and 1 assistant. It is an impossible situation to handle that many cases. It's not sustainable to run the office with just 1 assistant and 1 law director. However, because of those vacancies, at the end of this year, there will be money given back to the general fund. But these levels of staffing are probably go against state law. And part of the problem is that the city is so broke, we can't afford to offer enough money to get brand new law graduates out of law school to work as assistant law directors. That's why we have open positions for more than 18 months. Any other member of council wish to address the law director's issue? Okay, next question. What is the municipal court doing to help? The general fund and the municipal court budget pays salaries and benefits for 100% of the judge, 9 full-time employees, 3 part-time acting judges, and 1 part-time magistrate. It also pays 50% of the salaries and benefits for full-time employees, and a grant taking up the remaining 50%. General fund picks up employer share health insurance for these employees and other grant funds. The municipal court, because of the complication with it being part of the county, there is no items that can be reasonably looked at for substantial savings, and that was not part of the performance audit. Any comment on the judges? What is the auditor's plan to help? There is no known plan from the auditor, although the performance audit stated that the office is overstaffed by 1 full-time equivalent. That's at page 67 of the audit. And note that the auditor has efficiencies to be gained. They still use paper timesheets. Would any member of the council wish to address the auditor question? Okay. Questions about automation. This question, one of these questions is said that for years the city is stuck in the old days with paper timesheets. That was the previous question, the inability to pay fees, permits, and taxes online. These things have been changing recently. Online water utilities payments began in 2023. The city will soon have a new website. Once launched, it will allow parking tickets to be paid online, along with online park rentals, parade permits, curb cuts, and zoning inquiries. A water billing employee that is planning to move to another position, well, it is anticipated those duties will be replaced by an automated kiosk. Any other questions about automation or responses regarding automation? No. Moving on, ARPA money. There is a document, well, we have many questions,
Okay,
we're running out of time.
how about this? I'm for military, I'm for police, I'm for firefighters. Take a nice pole, put it down the front street where the army is, knock that thing over, build condos there, charge $2, $3, $4, $500,000.
Sir, we have 13 minutes left
I
before this
understand.
item, so I
pay
have to
taxes, I
ask.
can't vote in the city, that's fine, dandy. I support firefighters and police officers.
question group is about ARPA money. How much ARPA money did the city receive? And the city received $9.7 million, and those have been appropriated over the last few years to over 47 projects in the city. There is a document in the back that summarizes the status of those ARPA projects. Does any member of council want to address the ARPA?
I will add, the discussion around pickleball courts have come up many times, and there has been a request for that money. There has never been any legislation from council to put money into place for that, and I do not believe that there's any willingness from council to spend money on that either. And I guess I will, also add, when we first got the ARPA money, we were told that there was only a chunk allowed to be used to put into the general fund for money that had, could be counted as revenue that was lost due to COVID. So we started this process, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out projects that would have, needed to be done, that was money that was going to come from the general fund. So we tried as much as possible to ease the burden while choosing projects coming from the ARPA money. Well into that process, we found out the changes that they made were over and over again as to how the money could be used and couldn't be used. And it did come out later that the money could be used a lot more broadly than what was presented. Unfortunately, at that time, we'd already committed a lot of the money, and we're at the end of 2024, we have to have all money from ARPA encumbered going towards a certain project, with all money having to be spent by the end of 2026. So I believe there's how much per that sheet still available? $345,000 that has not been committed to anything. There are projects that are coming in under budget, so that is something that we have to figure out what to do with that money. And supplementing the general fund is an option for that, but it's still not a yearly repeatable cost savings, but it would give us more breathing room to make long-term changes.
Next question, how can council cut back on police officers considering drug and violent crimes are increasing at a steady pace and knowing Marietta is a drug hub? So the city police departments compile annual reports. All of our sister cities have annual reports, and actually have them up here. For 2023, Marietta PD reported 10 arrests for drug possession, 7 arrests for drug paraphernalia, 2 arrests for DUI, 2 arrests for illegal conveyance of drugs, and 1 arrest for OVI. Now there This is in the report that's provided to the mayor. It is an annual report. If it's incorrect, then I suppose it will be corrected.
We watched one at 7th Street Speedway 2 days ago.
Okay. That's fine. We do have an MP officer that serves on the drug task force. Those cases are with the sheriff's department. As to violent crimes, according to that report that was provided to the mayor, and if it's inaccurate, that's not, that's perhaps something that can be corrected later. But according to that report, there were 2 felonious assaults, and this is for the year 2023. There were 2 felonious assaults, 1 robbery, 1 arson incident, a breaking and entering, and 45 domestic violence cases. That is from the report. So if it's not accurate, then that's okay. Is any member of council wish to address that? Yes, Councilor Nolan.
You don't need it.
Would you please supply us with the correct numbers then? We're happy to get input. Supply us with the correct numbers.
She said we got 2 OBIs, I have 3 times that myself.
Please put it in writing. Please put it in writing and submit it there.
That's arrests for OVIs. Apparently, the report stated that there were 51 OVIs, but only 2 arrests for OVIs. Well, let's move on to the next question. We'll get the correct numbers perhaps later. If staff cuts are made, when will employees be notified, and how long of notice will they be given? An employee affected by staffing cuts will be notified according to their contract. FOP notice is 10 working days. If layoffs occur, what's the order of recall? Recall is according to the contracts. This is information that we've been provided by our human resources. What will people affected by any layoffs have for insurance? Insurance runs a 6-week layout, then employees may purchase COBRA. What's expensive? Is there any other comment on that? Okay, moving on to question group 13. What's the cost-benefit analysis between layoffs and terminations in terms of salaries and benefits? Termination stemming from job abolishment results in the same ending, a layoff. There is no cost-benefit between layoff or job abolishment. Both scenarios, since they are both layoffs, produce the same financial objective. Result for the city. Any other comment on that question? What time frame were unions given regarding the audit during negotiations? Our records indicate the Teamsters received preliminary performance audit prior to their December 28th approval. Police voted January 23rd and had preliminary audit report as well. Fire voted on their collective bargaining agreement February 15th. That was after the audit report became public. Any other comments on that? Question group 15. Why did the council unanimously ratify contracts with the audit in hand? None of the council votes on the collective bargaining agreements were unanimous. If we didn't vote to approve, then contracts could, quote, have been forced into binding arbitration. At binding arbitration, arbitrators do not take into consideration a city's financial condition, and thus larger percent raises would have been risked. Any comment about that? Moving on, how much overtime to add? Yes, sorry.
So we did ask our legal counsel upon the release of the performance audit how we should respond, given that there was still one contract negotiation that had not yet been finalized. And what we were advised by the administration was that we had approved them to ask the state auditor if they could use the performance audit information pertaining to each contract, each union, as well as the overall financial impact while it was still in process. So that information, as we were told by the administration, had already been presented to each union, so there wasn't anything regarding their contract negotiations from the performance audit that they hadn't been shared within negotiations. So that is why our legal counsel advised us to move forward.
No further comment, we'll move on to question group 16. How much overtime did the Marietta Fire Department work in 2023? And with reduction in staff in the fire department, what will the forecasted overtime be for 24 and 25? Fire department overtime in 2023 was $162,369. The administration needs to work on schedule to prevent overtime. We have been advised that other fire departments We have been advised that other fire departments, when management staff is out, command staff fills in instead of calling in persons for overtime while still providing services to the citizens.
don't compensate them for that.
Is there any member of council wishes to address that? Moving on, how much money was spent on lawyers answering State Employee Relations Board for the chief's position? That is $27,293.
What's
Question
after
18.
hours transportation?
Ma'am, we have 3 minutes left. I'm trying to get through these
So you
questions.
spent $123,000 on that, I'd like.
Yeah, okay, that's, okay. After hours transportation, that was who would like to address the after hours transportation with the ARPA funds?
$15,000 for a month.
How about our tax dollars, big
What
police
is
officers, firefighters, they go there?
It was Green Cab. It was a program to study transportation to help individuals in our community that did not have access to transportation in after hours. It was led by former Judge Susan Boyer, I believe all members of council supported that, and that document, that study has resulted in changes that will advise and perhaps improve and change our public transportation that we provide in this community, and actually is being looked at by state level, at the state level, as a model for how to improve access to transportation for people who can't afford it. So that's what that was. Question group 18. Why can't we wait until after the first quarter numbers are on April 15th? The next regular meeting is set for April 18th. So is there any member of council who'd like to address any timing issues now? During the 2024 budgeting process, when were department heads notified to squeeze their budget? During that budgeting process, which is October to December, department heads were made aware of need to tighten budgets. We did not have much result, however. Group questions, is there any member of council who wishes to address that? No. Question group 20. What savings plans have been researched? Councilor Rutherford, would you like to address that question?
I put in a few calls up to the governor's office. Dan Fitzpatrick, thanks to a couple of folks, supplied me a number up there. I've reached out to them about retention services for police and fire. They informed me that that amount had already been distributed to the city last year. However, they did say that Cleveland may not use their entire amount, and that may be clawed back by the state, which provides potential to get a second bite of the apple. They're reached out to a couple of other representatives in Columbus to see if their money is available. I'm still waiting to hear back. And I still need to be in contact with Mr. Huffman so we can look at grants to see if, particularly in the world of, I think, training as well as equipment, both of those have money available at the state level that we can get. It's a short-term measure, but it's money.
Captain Huff.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Just an additional on the grants. Most grants of significance don't offer funding for ongoing operation. Most of those are for establishing new projects or construction of particular facilities. And the other reality is that almost every grant now is reimbursement. So whatever award you may be receiving, typically we would have to pay that cost up front and then request that percentage that we have in return. So it's a great question. We will continue researching that, but I just want to make sure that folks know that getting a grant isn't the same as just getting a check.
Question group 21 is our last question group. We're out of time. I'll just do the last question on this. If we lose members of our police department, what's going to happen when we have officers conducting a traffic stop and a domestic disturbance happens across town or a house fire? The state sheriff's department and Ohio State Highway Patrols have jurisdiction over the city and can assist. There are 3 fire stations in the city as well as mutual aid agreements with surrounding fire departments. Does any member of council wish to address?
So who's going to be in the county? Who's going to be in the county with this?
It's now past the time that Washington State. If anybody has questions that haven't been answered, I ask you to please come forward afterward. We have promised Washington State that we would end this meeting at 7:15 because of their facility constraints. Is there any member of council who would like to make a closing statement? Make a statement. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Hold it, wait a second.
Liz,
All the questions, when do we schedule it? When do we keep going?
there were many questions that need a lot of information provided to it, and so any questions that weren't followed up will be followed up with public records provided to be able to answer the questions.
And they didn't maintain the software.
Okay, just one moment. IT has indicated that they, well, ma'am, IT has indicated that we can stay over briefly, so. We've had.
I will stay there as long as Washington State will allow. Washington State IT and their management will keep the facilities open. I'll stay here all night if they want to do that.
Tell me different things. This guy's what we're about.
They want to come forward and ask a question. Yes, sir, fine.
We have to go up there. We have to get there and walk her. You don't exactly.
That is all call outs to save somebody's house. Who does the city respond to extra? Us, DeVola, Warren, Williamstown, Belton, all the volunteers out there. That ain't nothing. You're saving people's houses. If downtown Marietta would have not had the people we had, and the fire departments, the volunteers, and everybody helping each other, this town would have been gone a long time ago.
We got to keep some order here, so I will answer questions, but we can't just have a free-for-all with just comments and everything. So, Mr. Mitchell.
Quick question to the council. If you have the intestinal fortitude to answer this question, I would appreciate it. How many, raise your hand, you don't even have to say yes or no. How many of you have actually done a ride-along with the Marietta PD? Raise your hand. Ride along, or work some time, or stay some time at the police stations and the fire stations in the city. Raise your hand. Thank you. Please.
Well, did the clipboards go around and are the actual questions from tonight? That were written down on the clipboard.
No clipboards, the clipboards were in the back for the written questions, and you said they'd be
What is wrong with what's going on right now? No one is being irrespectful, disrespectful. They're asking questions that are pertinent to all these people. Why? What's wrong with this?
that we support.
I just want to add, I did thank Michelle for compiling all these questions. We asked the public to submit these questions. These questions came from you. Exactly. These questions came from the public. They came from all of you.
Where were the questions being asked? Where did you write down the questions?
You'll have to ask the mayor if it was published on the city's website.
To try to keep some order here, I'm willing to answer questions. I'm willing to have an open door at my office if anyone wants to come in and talk. We can't go on and on, just we're going to be here all night. But I want everyone to have their voice, but you can't do it all in one night.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
After hearing several discussions on the 8th, and maybe we have some money coming back, and after the meeting we had Monday night, and hearing about the attritions we're going to have of retirement over the next couple of years, do you think we could bridge over that part where we have no layoffs and be able to retain our young talent to grow into the positions that we're going to need in the next 2 or 3 years?
That was what our plan was all along when we were trying to put together on behalf of the administration department. Is yes, we would not, especially the way it works is the lower senior members would be the ones that would be cut first. And they're the ones that are going to be rising up in the ranks, and our older members are going to be retiring and leaving the ranks. So we wanted to work that way versus across the board cuts. There are a couple positions. I'm not going to stand up here and say we're not going to cut positions. There's going to be a few cut, but no one in an active role right now or in a position. We are for cuts, so we want to make that clear. That there's about 6 positions in the city that either aren't filled, can be merged, can be changed, and through attrition, and would not be affecting anyone's lives.
Good.
But, we all have to work together. That's not just one. I'm hoping that we all can work together to make that a reality. It's not our. No one up here wants to change that. Yeah, no one wants to lose a job, but we just have to do our best.
Are we going to have another opportunity to ask questions, or is this it? Because I didn't know you could ask questions.
I didn't arrange this meeting, so I'm trying to just do my best to help answer or ask questions, but it's up to the council.
There are advertisements for this meeting on radio, website, social media. We asked that questions be submitted to the council clerk. And thus they were consolidated.
I didn't see it anywhere.
Yes, well,
I didn't see it.
we submitted questions that explained how this was set up at the beginning. We just had a similar meeting to this on Monday, went for over 3 hours at the Armory. We don't have time constraints at the Armory. Our agreement with Washington State was that we finish this meeting by 7:15. So we're doing the best we can to answer questions. Yeah. To get information out of the board got it. And we're doing the best we can to operate within time constraints. We could not have this meeting on any city property because we do not have the seating capacity. So to be invited back
Well,
to
then you
the
guys
future,
should have not talked.
we need
It
to
gave us
respect
the time to
their.
ask.
Yes.
We can stand up right on fire for the police force.
Okay, I think
This
it's time.
young lady has been having her hand up and has been extremely polite. I think she should be heard.
Yes.
Yeah,
One year in this officer program at the police department, and in 1 month there were 76 overtime calls in 1 month. So for the remaining officers that are still going to be left after this all goes through, what's going to happen to one of those officers when they're on a scene with someone with a gun and there's no one to help them? What's going to happen? What's that? Their safety? You're literally ruining the safety of the officers by cutting these jobs. They're not going to be safe. The freaking sheriff department, the cities, they're not going to have enough time to get there before the officer is shot or worse.
Any of you? Yeah, but we haven't had any reports of that.
So we did receive written questions here. We are out of time. It's somebody, Janet Bond, Charlie Clay, Kyle that one's blank. And Ms. Bethany would like to come up and speak to the council. We can speak to you before, but you need to start heading out. The facility is closing.
He's had his hand up for a while.
Madam President,
How soon have you go through these sites?
I don't have a vote.
Okay, well, when the rest of the council goes through the sites, how soon do you anticipate coming in? I mean, listen, we looking at May 1st?
No decisions have been made. I don't have a vote. This is a public hearing. We've had public information. It's not been a public hearing, so it is up to the voting members of the council if and when any action is taken to prevent the city going into fiscal emergency. That will happen. We're already in fiscal caution most likely, and once we go into fiscal emergency, the city, all of our contracts advise will be null and void. The union contracts become null and void, and in true Parks and Recreation fashion, Rob Lowe's going to come down from Columbus and cut everything.
I would say
So
no that.
this is how. Well, the timeline is every month we are deficit spending at a rate of $130-something thousand a month. So every week, every month that we wait, the problem becomes larger and more unsustainable. So the council is aware of that. That's why, this audit report just came out in February, and that's why we're having all these meetings and talking to department heads, talking to the mayor, and trying to come up with a response that will make it so that we do not have a fiscal emergency in the city. That's what we're trying to do. We're not trying, everybody on this board likes the police, we like fire, we like safety, we have children. So we are trying to be responsible so that ultimately we do not have.
I'm asking, if we're going to possibly cut $7, how much time do they have?
That is not.
The original intent was to have changes in place before the second half of the year, end of June.
Let's just go and speak.
On sitting down, go outside, don't think about the legal aspect. You go to the union, sit down, ask them through an MOU to cease everything at this point to save jobs. Almost we don't have sheriff's office. I don't want to replace our brother position. Here to serve. You don't want to replace it. You got to think about how do we save money. You have to think if we sign the contract with the city on the labor management. Look at all three unions, go into the MOU and cease any raises at this point in time to save jobs for people. It's not a time.
Well, from our public meeting on Monday, one of the representatives, I believe it was an FOP, did suggest that there be some sort of agreement where they reduce the raises, which happened. They're 3-year contracts. Collective bargaining agreements are all 3 years. And most across Teamsters, fire, and police, those contracts were approximately 3% higher. 3 for the next 3 years.
I think you go to a labor management meeting with the unions, trying to work that out to hold the stop and look at the projection of what that will save.
And that is an administrative function, and I think council would certainly be, we would be happy for those conversations to take place.
Great idea.
Well, and if I could, Mr. Ward, I appreciate the comment, and that was one of the many good suggestions that we received Monday for the very first time. So that meeting was extremely productive, and we got a lot of great options that we haven't had the opportunity to work through yet. So I forget the gentleman from the union that was talking about bridging the gap. I think some of those options might help us bridge the gap as offered. So.
Ma'am, you had your hand up.
I want to know, do you have any plans to increase revenue, do something to bring business in? You're that guy or fund. What are you doing to help bring business in Marietta and increase your tax base?
We are working every day on that. We've revamped processes in the partners, make it easier for investors to come to town. We have currently 3 major investors right now, and they've announced, like I said before, $40 million worth of investment in their head. If you drive across the Putnam Bridge, you're going to see a large space over there. That's going to be a big development. There's one out on Pike Street that's going to happen. And we also have more development out at First Colony Center, out around 7 across from Walmart. So it's coming. It all takes time to build out. So we won't see that overnight. We're going to see that hopefully here in the near future. There's approximately 200 jobs there. So I think the pay ranges are great, so I can't pinpoint exactly what that's going to bring. So there will be brought in.
Mayor, if I could. And to add on to that, I think in the last probably 3 years, we've got greatly improved relationship with the county commissioners. We've been engaged with the Port Authority, which has been super productive. Mr. Schenkel in the development office has been an incredible asset in helping those projects forward. So I think on that front, we have been working really excellently together to do some of those things. So I feel really good about how we position ourselves for that.
It's 7:30. We can have more.
I just had a question. One of the things that, first of all, thanks to everybody for taking time to listen and for council, but one of the things in 2007, were any of you here for the performance audit at that time?
No.
Okay. I was.
I'm going to say I worked for the Marietta Times at that time, so I
you probably
remember it
reported on
very well.
Yeah, so pretty familiar with it.
Not on council, but also was here.
There were a lot of us that were employed here and that did work under that performance audit. Unfortunately, the accuracy of that performance audit was not good to the tune of $7 million. But the good thing that did come out of that were things such as the Maximus report that suggested things like cost allocation from other funds into the general fund. And one thing that we noticed, our job here is dependent on the health of the city. So I know us, the police department, the fire department, the Teamsters, we all take it very seriously to account for the health, the financial health of the city, because we're going to be here longer than you are, right? So one of the things that we noticed was that the cost allocation from other funds is not coming back into the general fund. And I just wondered for the last 2 or 3 years, I wondered if there was a reason why we hadn't done the allocations that have been recommended through the Maximus report that we've done historically in the past.
I believe there was 1 year that I don't think they all weren't done. Some of the other funds haven't been healthy enough to be able to support that transfer. But outside of that, these transfers have occurred. This year, because we usually had been waiting to do them later in the year, but due to the general funds constraints, we've done the first quarter so far this year. And I guess I'll speak also to the 2007 audit. So where it made the projection, I think it was a $3 million deficit is what it had. I don't have it in front of me to read from it, but
it was about $5 million off.
Yeah. In the report, the next sentence says if you do not implement the advisements of this report, that's where you're going to end up. And the city did do many things like the cost allocation, like changing to the Teamsters insurance. So I would say that it's not entirely accurate to say that it wasn't correct. If we hadn't done anything, we would have been much closer to that $5 million offset.
So it's funny you bring that up, and the Teamsters won't have a problem with me saying this, because I'm actually the one that went and testified at the Teamsters bargaining, and also the fire department bargaining for the insurance. At that time, we went all the way to, we went through fact finding, and then we went through binding arbitration because the city was fighting us to go on the Teamsters insurance. So we actually had to go to binding arbitration to save like $1.3 million in the first year of the insurance.
Yes, it was a significant savings switching to.
Well, it was a significant savings. It saved that much, and that's with giving the employees 100% paid insurance.
Right.
Was the savings. And so I understand what you're saying about the 2007 performance audit, but that came on the back of your employees forcing, and I say you, but forcing the city to do the right thing.
Well, I mean, and the fact that the performance audit had to be brought by the voters, I can't imagine that nobody came to council asking them to do something before they put it on the ballot. There had to have been many conversations going on that council didn't pay attention to. So it unfortunately isn't surprising that while they were presented an option to switch insurances and save money, that at the time that council wasn't.
Another iron.
I was on that committee with them. I suggested self-funding because the spirit that was changed from the teachers to investigating if we have the ability to get the whole city under their plan, which we were able to do that with the committee. And we did that and made the city get it saved millions of dollars.
Yes, it was a huge cost savings.
And
it's still
it
incredible.
provided better service to our employees also.
Absolutely. People are astonished when I tell them what insurance is offered, that they honestly think that I'm not fully understanding because deductibles and premiums are so low with such great coverage.
I think what you'll find is that the employees here in the city, I'm a firefighter, I got a whole bunch of firefighters, police officers here, and we take that very seriously. But we also take the financial, fiscal responsibility of the city very importantly too. In fact, I would dare say some in this room probably spend more time on it, maybe even than you do. And I'm not saying that as in a derogatory way at all, but we expect this city to be healthy and to carry on not only our 25 or 30 years, but to go carry on into the future. So I would encourage you to value your employees. I know for a fact that many of you have been invited to the police stations, to the fire stations, to run around and see the Teamsters, and yet we fail to see you there. We provide a very valuable service. That's what the city is there for. I would also argue in the performance audit the validity of the comparables. If you read the fine print in the performance audit, it even says in the fine print that they don't consider all the comparables that they list on there under certain categories, which to me is not a comparable then. We have a historical list. I know at the fire department, we have a historical list of comparables that we've used since before my time at the fire department. So over 20 some years that they've been used. So if you would want a valid set of comparables, I would encourage you to look at something like that versus a hand-picked selection of ones that can make you appear a certain way. Thank you.
We go on.
This man has wanted to ask a question for 20 minutes.
I'd like to say that I'm 66 years old. I feel safe in my community due to the fine job that the police department is doing. I feel like when I called the fire department, those guys kept my line.
Yep.
They kept me alive. And I can't see cutting any of these people because they're doing an excellent job. I want to remain safe in Marietta. I want to feel safe in Marietta. I've been in Marietta almost my entire life. And the reason why the crime numbers are low is because those guys are doing a good job.
I have a question that hasn't been covered. So I work as a mental health specialist and a nurse in the community. So we talked about the community and what our health has been, the health of the town as a whole, but we haven't addressed anything mental health. Almost every one of these police officers and firefighters I've seen in our nation, and that's on almost every shift that I work. They come in holding people's hands, detectives, or all of them, suicidal patients, homicide patients. They use lives that have been saved that you don't know are getting saved. Because they bring them in, nobody sees them, we take care of them, we get them saved. So I wonder if it's been reviewed how much the fire department and our police officers have been involved with Marietta's hospital. And like I said, every one of these guys I've seen in that hospital, almost every shift they bring somebody in that can save their life. Not only that, when we get a great person in the ER who becomes violent or suicidal, and we are unable to control them. You know, our policy is we're handcuffed, we don't make hands on the patient. So we call Marietta PD. When staff are getting hit, I've seen doctors choke in corners. Marietta PD is in there within a minute, 2 minutes. Marietta PD is coming. They sit, they hold these patients' hands, they help, they don't come in and strong arm people. So I think that would be something worth reviewing as we look at the mental health side of things. You know, we look at arrests and felony charges. And sometimes I think we don't see behind the scenes how much these officers are helping our community in mental health.
Well put.
I also work in the ER in Say when it's the sheriff. How long is that going to take? If we,
Coming from the new matter of law.
What's our school's going to do it?
She said that she works in the ER.
How long are we going to give them to get there for school? That should
They
be
should.
one.
I mean, perhaps they could like maybe not take one raise or something, but having these people, I mean, they're sincere. They lay their life on the line. They don't know what's going to happen when you walk out the door. And I've needed the squad at least 3 times, and these guys are here now. They are wonderful. They are supportive and kind and do what they need to do to help you. They deserve more than to be thrown away. Absolutely. I mean,
I don't know that you guys want to know when this happened. But when I first started, there was a shootout in town on Spring Street. It went from midnight to 5 o'clock in the morning. And they called officers that were off duty and still didn't have enough. Bullets were whizzing by my husband's head. He didn't shoot them. The guy knew exactly where he was at, and it didn't matter. You're going to take officers away from us, and yet you don't care. Just because you don't know that there's things going on, it's not on the CAD screen. You're going on all these numbers. There were only so many arrests. That's false telling people that they're going to OBI arrest. Yeah, but you didn't tell them there's 51 that they've actually had. They can't arrest them all because they can't take them to jail. There's things that go on that you don't realize, and you're not getting all the information. You're not giving all the information. A couple months after the shootout, he's in a fight down at the galley, and somebody's trying to steal his weapon. The K-9, that hatch wouldn't let loose for the K-9 officer. 2 officers arrested this guy who's hyped up on drugs, and they're having a hard time controlling this man, waiting on other officers to get to their aid so he doesn't take the weapon from them. But yet you don't always hear about that. You don't always have the news right there at ready, putting it all over the TV. We have crimes in our community that you don't know about. We have an officer that, I don't know that he's here anymore because he probably got frustrated, lost the use of a thumb because he's fighting a man and the guy stabbed him. We have officers that need us. You don't hear about it all, but they're all being attacked all the time. Just because you don't see it on the screen, doesn't mean that it's not happening. And speeding tickets. Our officers are generous. They're doing their job with speed control. They do, I don't care if you believe it or not. They do give warnings. They do give tickets. But they do more of fighting domestic violence and other issues that are happening. And if you fight, it's going to get even worse. You can't help these men.
I think, speaking as much as I can for council, that we would love to be able to have conversations about how to approach this differently. but unless there are significant cost savings presented to us in ways outside of cuts, and the money currently will not be there in the coming year. So it's not that we're choosing not to pay people, it's that we will not have the ability to pay people. But we are happy to have conversations if there are other means to be able to come to solutions.
On the last meeting, and you guys sat there silently, Aaron was on her phone half the time.
We are still going through the process of trying to gather information. And it's not being helpful.
Would you like to see my notes and the meeting minutes and the things that I've referenced so that I can come to these meetings
So that's what
fully?
you were doing last time too?
Yes.
Yes.
These are computers these days. I have been using calculators. I have been checking newspapers.
You might let people know because it does.
We can't have a bunch of, just a free for all. I'm willing to stay, we can move on out to the parking lot if we have to. I know they want to wrap up, but we've already extended our stay. I will answer questions as best I can, but we need to respect their time and move on out. And look at this. Thank you all for coming.